Hundreds of people gathered at vigils held across Las Vegas on Tuesday night to honor and mourn the 58 victims who lost their lives when a gunman opened fire at a music festival. Stephen Paddock, 64, injured more than 500 people in the senseless attack Sunday night from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel before turning the gun on himself. Tributes continue to pour in for those who were caught up in the sick act of violence, and vigils have been held in Las Vegas and around the world. Some of those shot sacrificed their lives for their loved ones. Others died while trying to get people out of the firing line. Many were mothers and fathers. Others were first responders, medical workers and security guards. Stephen Paddock, 64, injured more than 500 people in the senseless attack Sunday night from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel before turning the gun on himself. Tributes continue to pour in for those who were caught up in the sick act of violence, and vigils have been held in Las Vegas, pictured, and around the world. Photos show hundreds of people turning out to remember the victims and pray for their families. Some people were seen crying as they laid flowers down near a makeshift memorial. Others gathered in front of the Bellagio Hotel's iconic fountains as they shared heartfelt messages of love and peace on a poster in honor of the victims. Many lit candles and held each other close, while others held signs and wore shirts with #VegasStrong written across them. A single rose was placed outside the door of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. Other messages of hope for the world paid tribute to Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, Texas, Florida, and Mexico, all areas that were devastated by Hurricanes Irma, Katia, and Maria. On Monday night, hundreds of mourners in Nashville, Tennessee, held a vigil for the victims of the mass shooting. Photos showed people weeping as they held close their candle in honor of the victims. Singer and songwriter Keith Urban performed Bridge Over Troubled Water during the vigil held in Nashville. In New York, dozens of New York University students also held a vigil following the shooting. On Monday night, the Eiffel Tower went dark for the men and women who tragically lost their lives in Las Vegas, as well as the 2 young women who were knifed to death in a separate incident in Marseille. The Empire State Building also dimmed its lights in honor of the victims. Members of the Utah Jazz observed a moment of silence for the victims of the Las Vegas shooting, prior to their game against the Sydney Kings at Vivint Smart Home Arena. 3 referees also bowed their heads during a moment of silence before the game between the Washington Redskins and the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. About 22,000 people were attending the third day of the Country Music Festival, which featured top acts like Eric Church and Sam Hunt. Photos of the hotel on Monday morning show 2 windows on the 32nd floor shattered. It's believed that Paddock was staying in a large suite or connected rooms and was shooting down on the concertgoers below from both windows. Police were able to pinpoint where the shooter was firing from because the gunfire set off fire alarms in the hotel. They responded to the room and breached the door using explosives. But by the time they entered the room it was too late. Paddock had shot himself dead. Inside the room, they found an Arsenal-23 firearms. Paddock had 4 Daniel Defense DDM-4 rifles, 3 FN-15s and other rifles made by Sig Sauer. It appears that he bought the gun legally and at least 6 of the weapons were purchased at Cabela's in Verde, Nevada. Others were purchased from Discount Firearms and Ammo, a few blocks from the Strip in Las Vegas, and at Guns and Guitars located in Mesquite. On Monday morning, heavily armed police raided Paddock's home in a retirement community in Mesquite, which he shared with his girlfriend Mary Lou Danley. Authorities found another 19 guns at the home. Danley, 62, was initially called a person of interest in the shooting, because she appeared to have checked into the hotel with him. But when police called her after the shooting, they found out she had been out of the country and that Danley had used her ID to check into the hotel alone on September 28. However, on Tuesday night Danley was met by federal investigators after landing at LAX airport. Danley, who authorities described as a person of interest following Sunday's shooting spree, arrived to the U.S. from the Philippines. She had been in the Southeast Asian country before the shooting occurred. It remains unclear if Danley had prior knowledge of the shooting, according to the New York Times. Authorities in the Philippines said that Danley had been in Manila since September 22, more than a week before the shooting. Investigations are still ongoing and police have not yet determined a motive. Paddock was not believed to be connected to any militant group, Clark County S.